In 2018, I arrived in Lebanon for the first time. And from the moment I stepped foot in the Lebanese International Airport, I noticed there was something off in the relationship between migrant domestic workers and their host country. And during that same month, as I was doing my weekly grocery shopping as Spinis, I got into an altercation with a random Lebanese guy. He started shouting at me in Arabic. I was young, shy. It was my first time in the country. So obviously, I was afraid and said nothing. So a woman came to my aid, a Nigerian woman who was a migrant domestic worker. She said something to the guy in Arabic and then turned to me and said, "Ignore that. You're a proud African, you're beautiful, and you're smart." Her act of kindness drew me closer to the plight of migrant domestic workers in Lebanon, a group of people that takes care of a lot of people, but no one takes care of them. And when times are tough in the country, they are dropped off at embassies with no money and nothing to do, like they are just garbage, which is sad. My name is Tadiwanashe Matambanadzo. I'll be presenting our project, E-migrate for migrant domestic workers. The kafala system is a Middle Eastern sponsorship system believed to offer economic opportunities for both non-migrant nationals and citizen-sponsored. However, this is not true. Under the kafala system in countries like Jordan, Kuwait, Lebanon, and Saudi Arabia, migrant domestic workers are abused racially and physically. They're beaten by their employers/sponsors. Some are raped by their employers/sponsors. They are overworked and underpaid and have little to no freedom of movement because their passports are seized. And in worse cases, they're locked in their houses when their employers leave. Lebanon is home to over 250,000 migrant domestic workers, all employed under the kafala system. The kafala system is a cog in a bigger machine that has resulted in the suffering of migrant domestic workers. Some of these other aspects are the economic collapse, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the Beirut port explosion. In 2019, Lebanon was hit by the economic collapse, which resulted in Lebanon losing, the Lebanese pound losing over 80% of its value, the unemployment rate increasing to over 30%, and salaries of people dropping drastically. But those of migrant domestic workers, which are already low, were dropped to even lower amounts. And migrant domestic workers became homeless in most cases because they were laid off with no compensation and dropped off at embassies with no money to take care of themselves. And the Ministry of Labor ignores all these crimes. The first case of COVID-19 was recorded on February 21, 2020. This affected everyone, but then again, migrant domestic workers were affected even more. Domestic workers could not relocate because of the lockdowns. There was an increase in work demand because everyone was staying at home. And there was a reduction in salaries because the COVID-19 pandemic and the lockdowns really affected the Lebanese economy, which was already struggling. And there was an increase of gender-based violence and sexual exploitation in the home for migrant domestic workers. This is Faustina Tay. Faustina Tay was a 23-year-old Ghanaian lady who fell victim to the evils of the kafala system during the COVID-19 pandemic. Faustina arrived in Lebanon on the 14th of March 2019, seeking a better life for herself, but instead she was abused physically and sexually by her employers and her sponsors. Faustina was found dead at the bottom of her employer's apartment, and her death was ruled as suicide without any investigation. Before her tragic death, Faustina documented her abuse through videos, messages, and texts, which were released by This Is Lebanon before her untimely death to try bring attention to her life and her story so that she could be saved. However, no one was held accountable for her abuse and her eventual death under these suspicious circumstances. Faustina Tay is one of the many migrant domestic workers who have been abused and died under the kafala system, and no one is held accountable. On the 4th of August 2020, the Beirut port exploded, and this left 215 people dead, wounding 2,750 others, and displacing 3,000 people. Migrant domestic workers, again, were affected more as they immediately lost their houses and their possessions because their homes were immediately close to the vicinity of the blast. And when aid came to Lebanon, it was discriminatory against the migrant domestic workers just because they are women and they're Black or from other Asian countries. Salaries and the well-being also worsened because the Beirut port affected the economy of Lebanon, which is already on its knees. The burden of providing basic aid fell now on the civil societies of Lebanon. All these factors listed have resulted in the lack of financial independence for migrant domestic workers, which has been documented to affect a person's overall well-being. And the lack of technical skills has made it impossible for migrant domestic workers to transition into new jobs in Lebanon or in their home countries, or just get side jobs to improve their well-being by earning extra cash. And the problematic that we found was a lack of financial independence for migrant domestic workers because of the kafala system, the absence of migrant domestic workers in the labor law, the economic collapse in Lebanon, and the lack of transferable technical skills. And through our assessment, we found that the NGOs in Lebanon, like LEGNA, EGNA, MCC, and the Alliance of Migrant Domestic Workers in Lebanon, have taken out the role to try and fix the horrors of the kafala system in Lebanon by trying to improve the lives of migrant domestic workers in Lebanon. They have created projects like empowering migrant domestic workers with technical skills like candle making to earn extra cash, starting campaigns for the rights of migrant domestic workers through the use of comic books, creating safe spaces for migrant domestic workers, and workshops for migrant domestic workers. Computer skills are something that everyone needs when we're looking for a job online or in person. They're also needed when you're running a small business or running a small campaign. Hence, our intervention was the provision of basic computer skills for migrant domestic workers. The basic computer skills involved basic navigation through a computer, Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, and Microsoft PowerPoint. The curriculum was designed to be hands-on and fast so that we're able to teach the migrant domestic workers as much as we can in the short period of time that we had. Our partner was Ms. Teresa Pontilas, who is also in attendance today, the founder of the Alliance for Migrant Domestic Workers in Lebanon. And our demographic were female migrant domestic workers from Asia and Africa, aged between 27 and 60, residing in Beirut and running small businesses or NGOs. Our intervention followed the following steps. First, it was contacting our beneficiaries through our NGO partner. Two, finding out the computer literacy level of our beneficiaries through online polls and texting on WhatsApp. 3, designing the curriculum. 4, booking training location, which is the AUB campus and AUB computer labs. And 5, organizing transport for the migrant domestic workers so they don't use their own money with the help of the procurement office at AUB. Because our partner does not have offices or the tools to implement our intervention, we decided to use the resources at our disposal, which is the AUB campus, always the resources that include the computers, the Wi-Fi, and the students themselves. So this is the first day of our intervention, just giving a brief introduction to the team, our partner NGO, and our curriculum. These are more pictures from our intervention with Mastercard Foundation scholars being the volunteers of our projects. And as you can see, we really tried for the project to be hands-on, because learning something from just watching or reading a book, you do not grasp anything. This was the last day of our intervention, which we believe was a success, as we were able to impart important technical skills for migrant domestic workers in Lebanon to apply in their lives so that they can better their lives immediately, because we cannot change the laws. This issue is bigger than a lot of people. So we try to choose something small that we can handle that will impact their lives immediately. While it was a success, it's important that we have refresher course lessons. And we hope that more students will take up this role to give the migrant domestic workers in Lebanon refresher lessons on computer skills and other technical skills that are important in earning extra cash or transitioning into different jobs in Lebanon or in their home countries. Thank you.